Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the UCLA Pritzker Center's Immigration Talk. Hola, buenas tardes y bienvenidos y bienvenidas a todos a la plática sobre la inmigración del UCLA Pritzker Center. As a land-grant institution, the UCLA Pritzker Center acknowledges our presence, digital or otherwise, on the traditional, ancestral, and unheeded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We pay respect to the ancestors, elders, and relatives past, present, and emerging. We are based at UCLA in Los Angeles, California, and we will do our best to share information relevant to all jurisdictions, but please bear in mind applicable state law and local policy. This event is being recorded, and it will be shared on our YouTube channel and on our Twitter account. My colleague Emma will drop those in the chat. So once again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our immigration talk. At the UCLA Pritzker Center, we're proud to stand with our immigrant families and to offer resources to defend the rights of immigrants, children, and their families. I am Nancy Olivares, Policy and Community Impact Director, and I am joined by my team members, Kristina Lina, our Communications Manager, Ana Rivera, our Program Coordinator, Emma Chen, our Research Assistant, Taylor Dudley, our Executive Director. We also want to thank Tiffany Saldana from the UCLA Prevention Center of Excellence for partnering with us for this event. Lastly, we'd like to acknowledge support from the Anthony Pritzker Family Foundation, which made this event possible today. We are so grateful to welcome you to this important conversation, especially at this crucial moment for our communities. We know that across Los Angeles County, families are living with deep fear and uncertainty in light of the heightened immigration enforcement. To address these concerns, we're incredibly honored to be joined by a powerful panel of speakers who bring years of experience in mental health, law, child welfare, and immigrant rights advocacy. I hope their presentations will be both informative and inspiring. We received your questions, and many of them will be addressed during the presentations. Please use the Q&A function to submit more questions. The time permitting, we will address them towards the end of the talk and with resources after the event. With that, I am pleased to introduce our first speaker, Jimmy Urizar, who is the Vice President of Student and Community Services at Para los Niños. We will add the link to the Para los Niños website in the chat for those who would like to learn more about their organization. And given Jimmy's work at Para los Niños, he will share what they're hearing from families and how the recent immigration raids have impacted their willingness or ability to access services. Jimmy, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Welcome, everybody. It's good to be here. I am Jimmy Urizar from Para los Niños. And for those of you that don't know, Para los Niños has 16 sites across all of Los Angeles, primarily in the downtown area and South Los Angeles area. So during the height of the raids in May and June, we were really thrown into the fire there. I think it's no surprise to anybody to hear that families were expressing a lot of fear. You know, on our end, when we're talking about, we're fortunate to be able to provide a multitude of services, from our early ed sites to our charter schools to our social services. And across all of those three areas, we saw a huge amount of concern expressed by family members. Our early Head Start program that is located on Skid Row saw a decrease of 44% of attendance. And oftentimes we would hear families saying that they were afraid of being caught. They were afraid to walk out into the street. They were afraid to even just take care of basic needs like go grocery shopping, doing laundry, getting home supplies, going to work. For those of you that drive through downtown, you will see downtown is hustling and bustling. You know, you walk through, you drive through the Flower District or the Fashion District, there's activity. And I think what we've seen is a huge decrease. When I drive through it myself, I notice how empty it looks. And it is because we continue to hear that even though, like, we've made it a little past some of the really rooted raids, that the fear still exists. To this day right now, we hear families letting us know that they do not want to come for their mental health appointments. Our home visitation programs have been impacted because our families are afraid of what could happen. So we've had to move and transition over to some telehealth. It's been very difficult, and we've tried to meet that need and that moment. We've partnered up with our good friends here, and you'll hear from Diego with Tzedek, to really get information out to families about their rights, to hear about what they can do to get family preparedness ready. And I want to say that this is not just impacting families, it's impacting staff. This is unprecedented. I think a lot of people will talk about, we've kind of been through something similar in times of COVID, but this is very different in that the intent and the impact of this is reaching to separate families, right? We're not trying to keep each other safe by going into our homes. What we're trying to do is trying to prevent anything to happen in terms of separation of families, right? So navigating that for staff has even been difficult. This has been something that a stressor that in all honesty, I think all of us as nonprofits who provide social services, educational services, we didn't know how to react to this because it was a swarm of things that were happening, right? We're hearing executive orders stating this, having to make sense of the legal aspects of that to share with families so that they know what their legal rights are, and to share that information with our staff as well, so they know how to initiate any level of partnerships that are needed, or any referral or resources that we can provide. So it's been very hard, I will say that. I am very thankful for all the partnerships that we have. We've been able to really move our staff and to really engage the community. I think, in partnership again with like our folks, our friends at Tzedek, we've been able to host 10 family preparedness workshops that have touched 450 community members across the county. And we've intentionally not had these in person in order to avoid any more fear or any more concerns about potential detentions. So, I say all this because the fear is still there. I think even for us to be able to look at how we partner together, how we look at ways to serve and support those families. I'll add one more thing and then I'll turn it back over to you, Nancy. One of the things that we did do to meet this need is we tapped into some of our partnerships to deliver food boxes to 121 families. And that is an ongoing thing that we've been doing since the raids have started. In addition to that, we're having home supplies delivered so folks can take care of their home. Again, people are afraid to leave. So we're trying to provide them with the basic necessities in order for them to feel safe and feel okay. And thank you for your time. And I'll be here for any questions. So Nancy, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Really appreciate you sharing all the insights on what you're hearing from families. And thank you so much for all the work you and everyone at Para los Niños is doing to support our communities during this time. So thank you. I think this is a perfect segue. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Blanca Orellana. Dr. Orellana is a licensed clinical psychologist at the UCLA Semel Institute for Neuroscience and Human Behavior and the clinical director for the UCLA Stress, Trauma, and Resilience START Clinic. Dr. Orellana works supporting immigrant children and families with their mental health. She will be sharing guidance and tools for having supportive conversations with children about the current immigration rates and related fears. So, Dr. Orellana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Jimmy, for sharing a little bit about the voices. So, as the director of the STAR Clinic and a mental health provider, we work with children and families who have experienced trauma and several other life adversities. And a common question that we get when something scary has happened is, how do we talk to our children about it? Or do we talk about it at all? And the short answer is yes. As parents, we have a natural tendency to want to avoid difficult conversations in order to shield or protect our children from distress or any worry. But it's really important to have regular check-ins and to have conversations with children about what is happening all around us. Next slide. One thing that I like to use with families is the acronym listed here, Be Prepared, to provide some general guidelines for having difficult conversations with children. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start by probing gently. Next slide. We want to first assess what the child already knows or what they might have heard. And this will give you a sense of how much information you might want to provide or what misinformation you may need to clear up. So you can start by asking a question like, what have you heard about deportation? Or what have you heard about ICE raids? And having a general statement like, you know, many kids are scared and worried about the ICE raids, and seeing what type of conversation that prompts. Having these general statements or open questions can really help open the door to start having these conversations with kids. Next slide. R is for reassure. So when a child asks a trusted adult a question, I always encourage them to think about what is the child really asking? And for the most part, and typically, kids just want to know, am I going to be okay? They want to know if they're going to be safe and cared for. And you can reassure them by saying something simple like, I can hear that you're scared and we're doing everything to make sure that you're safe. So saying something like that can really help provide some immediate reassurance and help restore a sense of safety for children. In some situations, you may want to also discuss some specific things that adults are doing to keep themselves and their children safe. And in this particular situation, you might want to speak of specific things like maybe you're carrying important documents all of the time. You have emergency phone numbers readily accessible. You have a family plan in place in case of any emergencies. And that can also help provide additional reassurance. Next slide. We want to explain by addressing any misinformation, identify inaccurate information, and find any points of misunderstanding. And it's important to explain in very clear and simple words what is happening or what has happened. We know that kids have very creative imaginations, and when there's any missing information or any gaps, they create their own explanations for things or their own narratives. And oftentimes those explanations can be far scarier than whatever the realities are. Next slide. We often talk about providing or using developmentally appropriate responses. And all this means is just consider the child's level of cognitive understanding and just use words that they can actually understand. You can ask yourself some of the questions that are listed here, but just make sure to use concrete language when you're answering your child's questions. Don't leave any room for misinterpretation. The more concrete and simple your language is, the more children can understand accurately what it is that you're trying to convey to them. Next slide. When answering questions, we really encourage the trusted adults to just follow the child's lead. So be sure that you are answering the questions that the child is actually asking. You don't need to give more detail or more information than is necessary to answer their questions clearly and simply. We typically recommend answering whatever the immediate question is, taking a quick pause, and allowing for any follow-up questions. If the child doesn't raise any questions or any additional questions, there's no need to push for them to have any more. And it's likely that as children process the information that you're giving to them, that they will have additional questions. And when those arise, then it's important for you to answer all of them. And I do just want to add that we often get asked really, really hard questions that we don't always know to answer. And it's okay to let your child know that you need some time to think about it and that you will get back to them, but just make sure that you actually do get back to them and answer their questions. So it's a good thing if they're asking things of you. Continue to answer their questions until there are no more questions or comments. Next slide. You want to keep routines as much as possible. We know that kids do better with routines, even when they are new routines. So keep a schedule, but be flexible in case anything needs to change. And do encourage and practice good sleep hygiene as part of those routines. Next slide. Emotional coaching just means adults should be modeling the labeling and expression of a wide range of emotions so that children can do the same. Also modeling coping strategies so that children can do the same. So you can say something like, I know you're worried, and here are some things that we can do together to make it less scary. We really just want to normalize being able to talk about feelings and encouraging children to use coping skills, for example, breathing techniques or something like that to help them self-soothe. Next slide. And then finally, you want to just do it again. Keep doing it as much as needed. Leave the door open for additional discussions and check in frequently with children. Understand that children will grow and develop and think about new information over time. So just be sure to address any new questions that might come up and invite children to talk again whenever they would like. I know that that was kind of a speedy thing, but you know, I hope these tips are helpful in starting, you know, the conversation with your children, and just some of the like main key takeaways. You know, if you and children are exhibiting signs of stress, this is totally normal following the distressing events that have been happening in our community. Really focus on enhancing safety. If you can, limit media, social media and media exposure, because it can help reduce stress as well as the spread of misinformation. Lean in on your community, other parents, trusted caregivers, and it's important, you know, to help with the impact or minimize the impact of these events. And most importantly, just keep the lines of communication open with children in order to restore a sense of safety. Thank you. Nancy, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Orellana. Thank you so much for those super helpful tools and guidance on how to, you know, speak to our children about the current situation that our communities are living. So thank you, Dr. Orellana, for that. Now, continuing along with our conversation, I'm excited to introduce our next speakers, Toni Banuelos, who is a senior program specialist, and Patrick Saldana, who is the Deputy General Counsel, both from the Los Angeles County Office of Education, better known as LACO. So as students return to school, Toni and Patrick will share what LACO is doing to support a safe return to school, especially for families facing immigration enforcement concerns. So Toni and Patrick, over to you.
Thank you. I'm Patrick Saldana. I'm a Deputy General Counsel at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. And I just wanted to start by just sharing that since the election, we've been actively training educators, parents, students, school attorneys, and board members around the rights of and legal protections for immigrant students. And so far to date, we've provided training to over 3,000 participants throughout the state of California around these issues. So in 1982, the United States Supreme Court in Playa v. Doe recognized that all students have the right to a free public education, regardless of immigration status. So this has been the law of the land for over 40 years now. And now we're faced with this situation where we have a lot of challenges and a lot of threats around, you know, effectively denying students access to that well-protected right. So in California, we're fortunate that we have laws that were passed to specifically address this. So AB 699 and SB 54 were adopted to provide safe schools for immigrant students. And those provide a number of protections, and particularly relevant for today's discussion are those protections around the storing and sharing of information related to immigrant students, as well as how to respond if ICE or immigration officers appear at a school site. So, for example, when gathering and handling student and family information, schools should never be asking for or collecting information regarding a student or their family's immigration status upon enrollment. And they should be accepting a wide range of documents to establish residency as well as the student's age, including affidavits where necessary. We recognize that many students come into the country, they may not have all of the papers from the country they came from to establish things like age and their current status in their education system. So affidavits should be accepted when needed. And In particular, if a school is contacted by ICE officers, if immigration officers show up at a school site, SB 699 provides really clear guidance around how a school should respond to that contact. So the Attorney General's office has put out guidance and model policies around this, which districts and LEAs throughout California must adopt as the minimum standards to protect their students. They can provide more protective policies, but those are your minimum sort of guidelines, the minimum baseline that they have to operate from. Every school should have a clear policy in place on how to respond to immigration enforcement and should have clear visitor policies and procedures that they should train their staff on and that they should follow. All policies should be posted, and school sites should contain a posting at their district property. We advise our LEAs that best practice is to extend that to things like Head Start delegate agencies, as well as adult schools, which may not often be thought of as, a school district sort of program or property, but we encourage them to post signage there so it's very clear to anyone who enters the site, including immigration officers, that this is a district property. If contacted by immigration enforcement, schools should immediately follow their policies and contact their principal, superintendent, or other designee that they've assigned to be the contact person, and should request to see a judicial warrant or a subpoena and immediately provide a copy of any document provided to their counsel for review. We've informed all of our districts, all of our LEAs in LA County that if they cannot reach their counsel, they should immediately contact LACO's Office of General Counsel, and we are available and we are happy to assist. In the event that an agent refuses to provide identification or documentation, the staff should not attempt to physically interfere, but they should emphasize clearly that they do not consent to entry to the property. And any actions that are taken by the officer after entering without consent should be documented. In the event that we have ICE appearing outside of a school but hasn't yet made contact or entered the property, it's our recommendation that schools should implement their soft lockdown procedures until the situation is confirmed to be safe. And parents should be notified via the trusted channels such as robocalls or texting about the presence of ICE officers, and should be encouraged to either delay pickup or designate an emergency contact to pick up that student if needed. And finally, in the event of a deportation or detention of a parent, schools should exhaust all available contacts first and to the extent possible avoid referrals to Child Protective Services. And the student and their family should be referred to other resources for assistance. And we really encourage our families who are facing this situation to create family safety plans stored somewhere that the student knows about, so that way in the event of a detention of a parent or a guardian, then we can implement that plan and avoid referrals to CPS and have a trusted adult who can make those decisions for the student. And now I'll turn it over to Toni Banuelos to provide a little bit more information.
Thank you, Patrick. I just wanted to just talk a little bit more about how to welcome your students back to school. One of the things that we see with the immigration policies that are being enforced is that our students are being affected and they're being traumatized. So one of the things that we notice is that they're not coming to school. A lot of our families are in hiding. And so we will come back and we may not receive some of the students we are expecting. So there's some alternatives that we can start to think of and start to plan. Every school district should have a independent study, that's board policy approved. You can offer short-term or long-term. We may have to start doing home visits. So it's important to remember that our families are afraid and they may not open the door. So it's really important to make sure that you don't go alone if you don't have that relationship, but you go with a trusted member of the community. So that might look like a campus aide or another teacher that may have had relationships with that family before. And something when you're out doing home visits is, if that's something that's within your role, is to try to make deposits to that community, because that's how you build trust. That might look like having resources like food banks and knowing really what our community-based organizations in our area are offering to some of our families that are affected, because they will have food insecurity. A lot of their primary head of households are being taken, and so now they're being put into really difficult situations. You'll see some movement go on. You're going to see your behaviors and your academics affected as well. There's so much to cover. I know there's a lot of questions, so I'm going to drop a few links in. We do offer AB 699 Safe Schools for Immigration toolkit and training. We have a request form. I'm going to drop that in the link. I've also dropped in the Attorney General's advice on how to really help our students feel safe. And I'm way over time, so I'm going to hand it back to Nancy. Apologies.
No worries, Toni. Thank you to you and to Patrick for all of that valuable information and resources. So thank you so much for that. Okay. So continuing along our conversation, next I would like to introduce Rigoberto Reyes. He is the Executive Director at the Los Angeles County of Immigrant Affairs. The Office of Immigrant Affairs' mission is to protect the rights and advance the well-being of immigrants and their families. Rigoberto will be sharing the resources his office offers for families, in particular those who need support making a family preparedness plan, and any additional resources that are available for families. With that, Rigoberto, passing it over to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Taylor, partners here. I'm just very moved by the response that we have at the number of participants. And I think that if we all leave ourselves some homework after this presentation to share the information we learned here with at least 5 people we know, you can see the multiplier effect that we will have in spreading information that helps our families, individuals, communities understand what's going on first, then knowing their rights and the resources available to protect themselves. If you can, switch to the next slide. I'm just going to spend a few minutes to go over a few things our Office of Immigrant Affairs, and let me reframe that, your Office of Immigrant Affairs in the County of Los Angeles does to work with families and partners, again, to help them understand what's happening and what resources we have available to support you. In my second part of my presentation, I'll focus on some of those resources. But I want to emphasize how moved we are here in the office to see how resilient families and individuals are. That in spite of all the fear and the threats and all that's going on, they continue to go to work. They continue to care for their families, and they're not giving up. I mean, I was talking to a person the other day, and she said, yes, I'm afraid. I'm very concerned. I'm very cautious, but I'm still showing up to work because that's the right thing for me to do, and I'm not going to live in fear. So my hat off to those individuals who are taking that approach. And again, we're trying to see how we can support them. Next slide, please. First of all, we want to remind folks that the county has a vast network of services and protections. And we also want to remind ourselves that the county has been very clear that we stand by our immigrant families. The Board of Supervisors has passed more than a dozen motions just over the last 6 weeks in support of our immigrant communities. We want our communities to remember that if you are a worker, you have rights. You have the right to be paid the wages that you're owed. And if something goes wrong, you can call us because we can try to resolve those issues. We want tenants to understand that you also have rights. And if you are being intimidated to do or not do certain things, under threat that they will report you to immigration authorities, remember, you can call us and then we can walk you through the process to see what's available. Similarly, for moms and dads, healthcare for yourselves and for your kids. As you know, the county provides those hospitals, those services. We hear some instances where moms are canceling the appointments for their little kids. We want to remind you that our county facilities are designated as sensitive locations. And the county, again, is committed to not allowing immigration enforcement in our facilities unless the immigration officials have a valid judicial warrant to enter facilities that are non-public. And so if you have concerns, please let us know, and then we can walk you in more detail as to what that means. Your health and that of your children is too important to not reach out and keep those appointments and keep coming to get the help you need. And lastly, I'm going to remind folks about consumer fraud. I was on Univision this morning at 5:30 and 6:30 concerning immigration services fraud. There is so much fear, and so we are naturally looking for answers to our immigration status. And you're going to come across individuals who take advantage of our need and offer false claims that they know a way to legalize our status. And so we pay them thousands of dollars, which is bad in itself, but just think about having someone who either doesn't know what he or she is doing or intentionally files an immigration application for a service, a benefit that we're not eligible for. That is going to be denied. And that's going to lead into action against us and ultimately even removal. So be very careful when someone tells you that they know the answer, that they know secret laws, that they know secret people that they can make this happen. Don't let that happen. What you want to do is get informed, understand what your situation is. You need to connect with real attorneys, with nonprofit organizations. And as I said, if you connect with us, we have a program, we call it Represent LA, where we have 12 different legal service providers under contract to help us provide consultas, to help us assign attorneys to review cases, complete forms, and represent individuals one-on-one with full scope immigration legal services. Make sure you go to the right place. If you go to our website, there's a calendar of events for Know Your Rights workshops that we are doing with our partners and ourselves. We have 2 or 3 almost daily teaching folks about these resources and about these rights. We're also spending a lot of time training the county departments about understanding what the fears, what the needs are in our communities, and preparing them to be better at responding to clients that reach out to us for help. So I'm going to stop here. I know there will be questions, but I just wanted to give you that overview. The website, the free toll number, it's available. We can do different languages if you have a concern in that regard as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rigo, for everything that you and your office is currently doing to support our communities during this time. Thank you. So I think with that, I'm excited to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Diego Cartagena, who is the president and CEO of Tzedek. Diego will be sharing with us how a family could create a family preparedness plan, the process to complete a caregiver's authorization affidavit, and legal issues families are currently dealing with. Diego, the mic is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you for this opportunity to be with everyone. As was mentioned, my name is Diego Cartagena, and I'm the president and CEO of Tzedek Legal Services. We provide free and confidential legal assistance to low-income individuals across LA County, regardless of race, religion, or immigration status. So it's very important for people to, number one, understand that we do not charge. As my colleague and friend Rigo just noted, you have to be careful with who you connect. So we do not charge. And everything that we do on behalf of community members is confidential. We're not permitted to repeat it to anyone, no matter who comes knocking on our door and asking for information. As Nancy mentioned, one of the things that I'd like to talk about today is how families can prepare should there arise an instance in which families may need to make a difficult choice as to whether or not to remain in the United States or leave the country, and how to prepare for the care of their children. Next slide, please. As was mentioned earlier in detail, it is very important for families. First, I want to note that what I'm talking about today is general legal information. And so if you have specific questions for your family, we'll provide information on how to reach us individually. Next slide. As was noted earlier, there are many concerns with regards to immigration at the moment and the raids that are happening and the possibility of family separation. Next slide. One of the things that we want to focus on is the importance of maintaining family communication. As the doctor noted earlier, it is very important to speak openly and transparently with your families and to have an action plan in place. Next slide. I know there's a lot of text on this slide, but we will provide you with links on where you can download all this information. One of the most important points is for folks to gather important documentation, such as birth certificates, social security cards, and passports, and maintain copies of those and give copies to anyone that you think may be involved in helping you care for your children, whether that be a family member or a family friend. And we're going to talk in a little bit more detail about caregiver affidavits in just a few slides. Next, please. If you go to our website, and we're going to provide the link to our website shortly, you will have the opportunity to download our toolkit, which actually goes through and outlines step-by-step all the documents we recommend that you have handy. It will contain a copy of the caregiver affidavit, and it'll contain some points as to how to engage in conversations with your family members. Next slide. And you can see there what the toolkit looks like. And I see that the website has already been dropped into the chat. If you'd like to take a photo of this extended URL, that is where you can find the preparedness toolkits in English and in Spanish. Next slide. Whatever plan you make, it's important to understand that there's a difference between an informal caregiver and a legal guardian. Next slide. An informal caregiver is a person who provides care for your children without having a court-ordered appointment. So they may have the physical care of a child, but they do not have custody of that child. Next slide. In order for that person to provide care for your child, you may wish to consider completing a caregiver's affidavit. Next slide. What a caregiver's affidavit does is it simply informs, it identifies the caregiver, and it gives the caregiver the power to enroll the child in school and authorize medical treatment. It's very important to note that you do not have to get this document notarized. It does not need to be filed with a court, and it should only be signed by the caregiver when it will be used. It does not need to be signed by a parent. Next slide. And there is a sample of the caregiver affidavit that we use in collaboration with our colleagues at LAUSD. Next slide. Next. One warning, many people think that what you should do is get a power of attorney or a notarized letter. You can get a power of attorney, but it is important to note that those do not hold any weight in the state of California. So they cannot be used in the same way as a caregiver affidavit. We actually recommend a caregiver affidavit as compared to a power of attorney or a notarized letter. This is particularly true when you consider the fact that many notarios, they will ask for a fee to prepare these. We do not recommend you pay that fee. You can get a caregiver's affidavit for free from our website and fill it out yourself. Next slide. And I just want to briefly note, I'll end with this slide here. There is a process called a legal guardianship, but it's important to note that a legal guardianship, what that means, transferring your legal rights as a parent to another individual. You can make that choice, but it is very important to note that in order to undo that, to get your custody rights back, you would have to go back to court and get a court order undoing the legal guardianship. And that may pose a problem. The court may decide that it's not in the child's best interest to undo that guardianship. So you want to be very, very careful before taking that step. And again, if you contact our office, we can guide you through understanding what the pros and cons of these different options are and help you move forward with the option that fits best for you. And we have contact information there that you can use to make an appointment with our office. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you, Diego. Those were super helpful and super informative information. And thank you again for everything that you all do for our families. And we'll be dropping all of these resources in the chat. With that, I'd like to lastly introduce our final speaker for this talk, Dr. Kristina Lovato from UC Berkeley's Social Welfare Department. Dr. Lovato has worked at the intersection of immigration and child well-being as a researcher, social work educator, and former bilingual social work practitioner. Dr. Lovato will speak to the connections between immigration and child welfare systems and provide related suggestions or recommended policy changes. Dr. Lovato, handing it over to you.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you to all of our panelists today. Really happy to be here with all of you. We can go ahead and advance to the next slide. I'd like to provide a brief orientation to the Center on Immigration and Child Welfare Initiative. This is a national peer-led organization. I direct the center, which is housed in the School of Social Welfare at UC Berkeley. Our goal is really to improve programs and policies related to immigrant children and families who are intersecting with the public child welfare system. Our goal is to provide and support them in achieving positive outcomes, safety, permanency, and well-being. And we do this through a number of things. We do this through conducting original research, through resource development and dissemination. Our website is full of really amazing and useful resources. We also provide technical and training to bridge practice and policy to child welfare partner agencies and child welfare agencies. And we also provide national leadership work groups and conferences. Next slide, please. As we all know, over the past 7 months and beyond, there has been increased immigration enforcement that have resulted in a shift of numerous policies and executive orders that have ranged from increasing border enforcement and detention, an increase in interior enforcement, removing and reducing legal protections and status, budget cuts that have severely impacted our own agencies and immigrant families' well-being, and also the reduction in access to public benefits, supports, and education. Next slide, please. So most parents and families can engage in short-term planning and long-term family, and I'll go ahead and talk about that now. And we can go ahead and advance the slide here. So in terms of what parents can do to decrease the risk of child welfare involvement, this is going to include short-term and long-term family preparedness planning. Next slide, please. So the first thing that families can do is parents can create, as what was mentioned previously in this panel, a family preparedness plan, which may include identifying and documenting a trusted adult. This can be a family, a friend who can care for the child in case there is an emergency in which a parent is detained or deported. In addition, of course, as was already mentioned, maintaining copies of emergency contacts, medical documents, school information, and legal documents is really important. Completing a caregiver's affidavit, power of attorney, and or designating another emergency contact through a parental designation form can be really important. Compiling documents that are critical, which has been spoken before, such as school and medical records, certified copies of birth certificates, passport IDs, immigration paperwork, again, that caregiver's affidavit, and especially informing and emphasizing the fact that children should know who to contact if a parent is detained or deported. Next slide, please. In addition to that, all household members should be educated, including children, as Dr. Orellana mentioned earlier, when appropriate, about their rights during immigration enforcement activities. This can absolutely help reduce fears and prevent unnecessary separation during immigration enforcement. Families should review and should know your rights materials. So it's been amazing to hear about all the trainings that have happened in LA County to make sure that children and caregivers know how to respond if ICE may come to the home, workplace, or school. There are some recommended resources through many of the panelists today, as well as the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, ILRC, the National Immigration Law Center, as well as the ACLU. Next slide, please. It's important also that families connect with local nonprofits, especially those and absolutely those who are trusted, who are respected, who can offer free or very, very, very low cost immigration legal services and family preparedness assistance. And we have some resources here on how to find help through our partners with Immigration Advocates Network, through the Catholic Legal Immigration Network, through the National Immigration Law Center, and of course, within our own local rapid response networks. Next slide, please. In addition to the short-term planning, it's really important to also engage in long-term strategies, securing stability and offering legal safeguards. And so one of these options could be exploring legal relief options. This may be, again, working with a trusted immigration attorney to assess eligibility for any type of immigration relief. The second option is perhaps assessing whether it would be appropriate to engage in legal custody and guardianship planning. We'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. The key takeaways are remain informed, be educated about one's rights, so that one can make decisions about the best opportunities for children's care. 2, develop a stable support network within the community. And 3, maintain educational and medical continuity. Next slide, please. We have some resources. Please, next slide. We developed at the CICW resources for how child welfare agencies and partner agencies can best serve immigrant families during this time. There are 5 points. I'm going to run through them quickly. 1, designate a point person for immigration within the actual agency, someone who's an expert. Number 2, develop a non-disclosure or confidentiality policy that prioritizes confidentiality as to immigration status and governs any communication with ICE. 3, identify contacts for the ICE detained parental or parents directive. 4, educate and encourage families to encourage emergency family planning, which we've all talked about. And 5, collaborate with nonprofit immigrant rights organizations. Next slide, please. The CICW has 3 professional networks, which I encourage you to check the QR code and sign up and engage. We have a great newsletter. We offer a network around practice. We offer a network around research, and we offer a network around legal networks as well. Next slide, please. We have some amazing publications and resources ranging from peer-reviewed publications to reports that are also within this realm of topics. So I encourage you to check that out through our QR code. Next slide. Finally, we offer also an inclusive trauma-informed practice training for agencies in serving, better serving immigrant families and communities. This is a free 5-module training at your own pace. It's asynchronous, and we encourage you to check this out as well. And here's our contact information. We look forward to remaining in touch. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lovato, for all that super invaluable information. Greatly appreciated. So I know that we are about a couple minutes to our hour mark, and so I want to take the rest of the time to answer some of the questions that have been dropped in our Q&A. So first, I'm going to start off with one of the questions that was dropped. So this one says, we have a wide range of communities impacted by ICE from Latinx, Mexico, Central America, South America, Caribbean, Haiti, those from API communities, Middle Eastern, Palestinian, South Asian, Nepal, and African countries. What supports are in place for these diverse communities? And so maybe if Diego or Patrick would like to answer this question.
Well, I can say from the education side that we do provide interpreters if there, if there's a need for interpretation, as well as if there's enough language speakers of a specific language within a district, then the district is required to provide documentation in those languages as well. Additionally, we do have information on our immigrant relations website for LACO that is available in a variety of other languages as well, and we can provide referrals to some of our community partners who can provide services in those languages.
Okay.
Yeah, I was simply going to add that Tzedek provides services in languages, including indigenous dialects that clients prefer. And there are agencies that we may refer clients to, like Asian Americans Advancing Justice SoCal, if there is a preference in terms of cultural sensitivity and things like that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you both. So there's also another question related to, so there was a promise that if the undocumented self-deport, they could come back after the bar had been lifted for them. Is this a guaranteed, given that an undocumented person has children born here in the US? What can the parent do before self-deporting? And so maybe Diego?
Yeah, when considering your immigration options, it's very important to connect with an immigration attorney. And please, as Rigoberto noted, please make sure that they are licensed under the State Bar of California, so that you know that they are authorized to practice in the state of California. But there are various rules that apply in different circumstances. Having a child in the United States will not guarantee re-entry into the United States. And self-deporting may mean that you are barred from re-entering the United States. So it is very important to connect with an attorney to review the facts specific to your case.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Diego. We have another question here around, so many families are afraid of sending their children to school. However, this places them at risk of students being truant. Is there guidance for schools to address these issues without placing families at risk of having them attend SARF meetings? So maybe this is a question for Toni or Patrick.
Yeah, I can answer that. We have education code that protects these types of absences. Truant, SARB is only for students that are truant, which means that they have 3 or more unexcused absences. And so what we are advising our school districts is to follow the ed code that identifies, there's a portion of it, depending on your school, but your administrator or principal, and only your administrator or principal, can excuse those. So it's a discretionary excuse absence. And we've been using that particular ed code to cover those absences and then provide that ongoing support. So really providing the additional supports. Does it look like an alternative education, or is it a referral to maybe a mental health referral? So we are really looking and supporting our schools and letting and guiding them to provide the support that our students need at this time. So luckily, hopefully, they won't be starved, and if so, you can contact our CWA unit, and we can support the school.
Cool. Got it. Thank you so much. That's all we have time for. And so we just want to thank everyone, all of our panelists and everyone who's here for joining us today. We really value your feedback. So if you could have a moment to complete the following feedback form, we would greatly appreciate it. You could also follow us on social media at UCLA Pritzker, and we're going to be having a recording of this conversation. It will actually be posted tomorrow. So once again, thank you so much for joining us, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.